Welcome back to Build Swap, the series where Grottles always leaves me a nasty traffic mess. Thank you, Grottles.
You're welcome.
And we have a special guest on today. Say hello to Cities by Diana.
Hello.
Oh man, I'm super excited to have you on this episode.
Me too. Oh, man.
I have so many questions for you. I don't know if we have enough time for it, but we're going to figure it out.
And if not, they can pick it up on my channel.
I have a number of answers, I'm sure. I think I do.
Great.
So, I guess my first question is, you, blew up on YouTube.
Fast.
Is that a question?
How did you do that?
How?
I don't know. I just post videos. That's literally it.
Your videos, though, are completely one of a kind.
Thank you.
And the information you give, how you get that much information in such a short video, blows my mind every time. That's not a question. That is a comment.
It is so kind of you to say. I really appreciate that kind words, though. I don't know. You know,
it's so educational, though, too.
Thank you.
What's your method when you create a video?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really have a method. I do, I guess, I'll do almost everything I do except for the kind of beginner's guide series that I've made where I did 3 episodes, which I am going to work on another episode of that. I've been having people ask, but almost every episode I do the voiceover later. So usually I will record all this in-game footage, and depending on whether I'm doing a city series where that I almost never have a plan. That I start building and then I figure something out. I'm like, okay, by the way, what the hell is going on with this? You're making the...
We're jumping the Grand Canyon. Don't you like it?
At first I was like, oh yeah, that's a really cool bridge.
No, we're jumping.
So what happened was when we worked on the Grand Canyon, both maps are by Teddy Radko, which are awesome.
Yeah, he's so good.
The pillars are a mess because the depth is so deep that you can't do any kind of trains or highways across the Grand Canyon. So that had been a super big challenge. And we were hanging with Larry Skylines one day, and he's like, use invisible roads. And we did it, and Jake, of course, loved it. So, so that's how it happened. So yeah, it's been kind of a comical series, but also a building series at the same time.
I love it. I love the. Anyways, back to whatever I was saying.
Yes.
My method, my process. It's when I'm doing a city and I'm building one of my cities, about 70% of the time I don't have a concrete plan. I just know that there's an area that's empty that I need to build in. And so I just spend a few hours, couple days maybe, doing that build. And I just record it. And as I'm building, then the ideas start to come to me as oh, what is this going to be? Because a unfortunate part about YouTube's algorithm is you don't get views unless you have some kind of coherent theme to your episode. And I've noticed that.
We've noticed that too.
Yep.
Yeah. There has to be something. And it just seems that a lot of things that have been popular for me have been focused on transit or development of some sort, suburban development or filling, detailing, stuff like that. That's very broad topics. So there's kind of a lot of freedom within that. But then,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but it still has to be niche to a certain extent.
Exactly. And that's the challenge is how do you come up with something that's both niche and broad enough to get views? Yeah. And I think that's something that over maybe the past couple of months I've gotten better at.
It's difficult. It's definitely difficult.
It's so hard. And then another thing that just has worked for me is I'll come up with an idea for a tutorial. And that those I have a pretty solid plan, but I'll record all of that beforehand too. Like if I'm doing an interchange, I'll spend a couple of hours just trying to get the technique just right
Right.
and then record it. Once I've got the technique down a couple of times where I could just do it from memory, and then that's when I'll record it. Go ahead.
I'll tell you, as when you do your tutorials, you tell it so well that
Oh, thank
anybody
you.
can follow it. Like, it's so good. And I love the storytelling. Absolutely. It blows my mind when I hear all this, the urban developments and what it could be or what it used to be, or that you get so into the story. And that actually, even sometimes more than the build, I love to watch and hear.
Oh, thank you.
Well, even that, like you have the realism. You've done realism a couple times,
Yep.
Yes.
and that's really hard to do in City Skylines.
Yes.
It is.
So, like, how do you think about that? Bring in realism to a game.
It's just like basically how I think about it is we have so many options for like assets that we can use now. Like this game is like 8 years old. So there's so many things that we can find on Steam Workshop or through a DLC that can be used in multiple ways. Like of course, like I made the homeless camps and those are super depressing, super sad. But all of that is like park life DLC stuff that's not meant for that.
Right.
You know, like tents underneath the highway. No, they meant for you to create a campsite, like with a cute little tents and cute little campfires. And
But
Right.
that's
But
what's
be happy.
amazing, though,
Yep.
because you sat there, you looked at it, and you go, "That's supposed to be happy, but I'm gonna make it sad."
But
yeah,
it's realistically sad.
Yes.
And it's
Exactly.
something that nobody wants to talk about, but it's there in your face all the time and everybody just wants to ignore it.
exactly. Especially like living where I live in California, like I will say like I've seen things like that, like places exactly like that just spring up in over like the course of a few weeks, just out of nowhere. All of a sudden a empty stretch of land near a road by a warehouse is all of a sudden full of tents. And so when I made that build, like that's not the first time I've made anything like that, but that's the first time I did it on YouTube. I was like, well, you know what? I've made this stuff before in my own time. Let's see how people respond to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. I love that stuff. I think it just brings awareness to like life,
That's the exact word I was looking for. Awareness. You said
awareness,
it.
right? People want to ignore that stuff. I live in New York, so I mean on Long Island, and it's the same when you live, especially in bigger cities, that there's a lot of that. I mean, people get, moved and they can't afford things, and the economy being the way it's been, it's realism, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that I've kind of wanted to show, like, in the builds that I make. Like, oh, let's not make like something that's kind of perfect and utopian or something that's kind of just clean and like glamorized and sanitized. Let's make the hard parts. Let's make the boring parts. Like, let's make a bunch of suburban sprawl that goes nowhere and means nothing. And then
Oh,
let's
you
talk
mean like
about
what
how
I'm
it
doing
got
right
there.
now?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what I mean though. Like that's real life though.
You're
It's
absolutely
that's
right. Yeah,
and
it
let's
is real.
talk about how it got there, you know? Let's talk about
Mhm.
what was there before, like you said, like the history and stuff.
Right.
And I agree completely. Like, I noticed, I mean, obviously with years that go by, there's more and more development, but like there's less and less open land. And is it good? I don't think so. I think we need some more open land again, but land is money, and any developer that buys it is going to develop on it.
Exactly. And that's the thing too. Um a lot of like just from a technique standpoint, what I do a lot in the game to kind of represent that is I'll build straight up to the highway. Like
Mhm.
a lot of cities you see in city skylines, like there's this, even in this, there's this massive trees next to the highway. Like you want to buffer the noise, you want to keep things kind of separate so that you have a better city. But a lot of the places that like I look to base and draw inspiration from, like when I'm building, the city existed before the highway, so you've got buildings right up to the highway.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And
I have that like right by me. There's a road and there's houses on one side, a big fence, and you could just see the highway. It's right there. It's not hidden. It's right there.
And it's so
But
Yep.
interesting that
I
you
think too.
guys have that experience.
I was just gonna say because we live in different spaces completely.
Yeah,
We're
because
complete opposites.
the highways through my cities, the highways were built on the outside edge of town, and the city grew past them. That's what happened for my situation. You guys had highways barrel through your towns,
Hmm.
hmm
Yeah, you're a much more rural area,
and I like it.
but it's
I
not.
don't blame you.
Yeah, I mean, I wish they would stop overbuilding. They'd love to put condos and, I mean, I think what's nice is when they do like senior living and stuff to make it more affordable. But I've also noticed that now they're exclusive and now they're way more expensive and so they're not really helping. It's
Mm-mm.
just to make a nice gym and club for, over 55, you know.
Oh yeah.
So, and it's money. It's all money making.
For sure.
But you definitely lose the wildlife, you use so much just breathable air.
hmm Oh yeah, I know. I'm like I live like next to a park, so I can see a nice park, but across from me is a high-rise building, and there's a parking lot in between the two, and I'm like, when's the building owner gonna sell that parking lot? And then everybody's view's gone, and it's like, well, first I want housing. I think it's important. I don't want to be a NIMBY, but also like, who's gonna live in that housing? Like, is it gonna be for the super wealthy? Is it gonna be for average folks? Like, we don't know, and that's the hard part. Is like, I see a lot of these like luxury buildings going in that just like don't really benefit anybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all just to make money, obviously. And I mean, of course, everybody wants to make money, but low income housing we definitely need more of because there is no middle class hardly sometimes. It's you're
That's,
really paycheck to paycheck or you're wealthy.
yep.
hmm
So
Oh
it's
yeah,
super hard. Yeah.
we got into something. We got on a nice little tangent here about
We
this.
did.
I could go on for ages about this because, um, yeah, it's something that's just like affecting us all in so many ways. And a lot of those buildings they stay vacant for years.
Mm-hmm.
Like in my city, there used to be this donut shop. I used to work in an office building in downtown, like 8 years ago or so. And there used to be this donut shop I go every day, and it was owned by a family. They'd been there for 30 years, and they had like I used to get delicious like egg and cheese sandwiches and coffee every morning. One day, the owner of the building sold to another like a company, a development company. They
Oof.
kicked them out, refused to renew the lease, didn't even raise the rent, just said no, we're not renewing your lease.
Wow.
And so they kicked out this building, this business, and about maybe 3 or 4 other small businesses, just locally owned, been there for 20, 30 years. Didn't even give them a chance to say, yeah, well, I can pay more. Just said, get out. That building is still like 80% empty, and it's been that way for about 5 years.
That's a shame.
And they
That's
renovated the whole building. Nobody. And if they would have let that donut shop and there was like a clothing store stay, there still would have been stuff. But right around the corner, luxury apartments
Yep.
that they just
Mm-hmm.
built.
And also in my city's downtown, the developer came in from Texas, and they wanted to build like a 5-star hotel right next to our event center, and a bunch of other stuff with the parking garages and all that. And
Mm-hmm.
there was a little strip mall. There's just a bunch of locally owned businesses, and my favorite bagel shop. The city bought it out, told everybody to leave, bulldozed the building, and the developer pulled out.
Oh, what a
I,
mess.
I was so mad. And now the land sits empty because nobody else has bought it.
Yeah. It's crazy how that works, huh?
Yeah.
And I mean, the whole reason that we got on the tangent was because of your builds, bring the awareness to that, which is super important, I think. I think adding a completely new element to it and talking about it, it's so good because I think everybody needs to be aware of it. But that's what's good about this game though, isn't it? Because it could bring out so many different aspects and everybody plays it different. No, not one person I know plays this game the same. They always put their own twist to it. I mean, yes, you do have the wash, dry, and rinse, repeat, all that. But when you bring a new, fresh take on it, it definitely helps.
Yes.
It makes it better for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100% agree.
So I appreciate that. That's good.
Thank you. Yeah, I drew a lot of inspiration for doing stuff like that. There was this YouTuber Prez that I was like a big fan of.
Oh
And
yeah.
he started doing that kind of stuff, like talking about like some like issues that would go on in his city. Like he built this one city, it was his last city, Cabrillo. And I'm sad he never finished it because he started going into that. And that's actually where I got the idea to use the tents
Oh, that's
as
awesome.
homeless camps because he did it first, like in one of his episodes. Like it was just like a small cut scene. I don't even think he placed them like on camera. I think it was just a cut scene of like a couple of tents next to a freeway or something. And I was like, oh, you missed an opportunity to run with it super hard, but I get
Mhm.
it. Like you only have like 30 minutes to make this video. Like, but yeah, he was so good. And I know that he was like big for years and kind of went into retirement. But that's kind of where I got the idea for a lot of my initial like builds and stuff was just from watching his channel.
That's one thing too I noticed with you. You have very short videos and they work. So you basically get your point across within 2 to 4 minutes. And that's super hard to do. Like I watch it, but you have so much information packed into that 3, 4, 5 minute video that it's incredible. I don't know how you do it.
You know how you said you were going to ask about my editing and like how I
Yes.
do it? That's how I do it. I make 4-minute videos as opposed to 45-minute videos.
Right.
Because if I wanted to make a 45-minute video, the sort of editing style and pace and kind of cover the information I do at that pace, it would take me weeks and I would only release videos once a month.
Right. Correct.
And that's the problem. And you're not that typical let's play, let's build as we talk kind of person.
Yeah, I tried
Mhm.
that. And I do that with one of my series and that is it. But I tried that when I first started and my first ever video was an hour and 5 minutes long or something, just some crazy long amount. And it was just unedited, me rambling. I think I had some like royalty free background music from YouTube that I ended up getting a copyright claim on in
Oh,
the background.
I had that too.
Yep. But here's the
And
thing. We're at the end of this episode, so we're going to have to continue
Oh, we're
this
gonna. Yes.
conversation in Grotto's episode. We can see this massive suburb that I built out with a nice amusement park here. We also have an oil industry down below, a nice office complex, and then I use some unique buildings, and that is the
Woo.
scale of the suburb. Thanks for watching. Head over to
That was
Grotto's
huge.
video.
that is
All right.
beautiful. I love
Thanks.
it.
Wow, City by Diana was a fantastic guest to have on the show. Make sure you go check her out in the description below. See you in Grotto's video.